Hello everyone and welcome to Aero Innovations. I'm Aero, your AI host. Tonight we're going to be interviewing Josh on how well his sessions have been going since he first started coaching under me. It's been about 2.5 weeks since his first coaching session. Since then, I've offered him hand analysis on every major hand he plays each night, as well as in-depth strategies he needs to work on or improve. We're going to discuss 3 hands that he played recently and my thoughts on them. Without further ado, let's jump right in and check in on Josh. What's up everyone, we're here with Josh. Say hi, Josh.
What's up, guys? Josh, Magic Card Poker.
We're here to get an update. It's been a while. We started the process on July 19th. It's currently, August 6th. So it's been about 18 days, roughly. In that time, you've had some amazing, ridiculously insane success. You asked me in the very beginning, like, what are the odds that I think that you can become successful? At the time, you had about a 27% win rate. And you're like, how, can I turn someone like you into a profitable player? And I said, I've had a few students that I've coached before, and it's very possible because I saw from your academics, you've got your master's, you're a very intelligent person. You just have to learn to apply it towards poker as a homework assignment, as a test, instead of as playing Monopoly, rolling to seeing if you can collect Boardwalk and Park Place. I myself became a pro literally overnight after one super long session, and I said you could do it too. I saw the potential. You just have to apply mathematics and psychology. Since then, you eat and sleep poker. You don't even take any breaks. You've been playing more than once a day. Let's see. You immediately won 6 sessions in a row following our first coaching session.
6 sessions.
Then you had I wouldn't say you kind of went backwards. You lost 2 massive sessions.
Yeah, 2 massive. Ate away all my games.
Yes, forgetting a lot of the lessons that we talked about. So then you recentered yourself. You talked to me. We discussed your losing sessions, and then you went on an absolute tear, another tear, 10 winning sessions, with the last one being over $1,100,
$1,300
at 1-3, which is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
So combined there, that's 16 wins out of 18 sessions.
Yeah.
2 losses, 6 wins, 10 wins.
Yep.
16 wins out of 18 sessions.
Yeah,
that is. Almost 90%? That is
80 something, yeah.
Absolutely insane. So, do you think that was possible by simply luck, coincidence, that you go from 27% win ratio to nearly 90? Or do you feel that you've applied what we've talked about?
Yeah, I definitely feel a lot more confident when I sit down at the table, like that I'm one of the better players there now. At first, the first 6 wins, I thought maybe I'm just sun running and getting lucky. And then I had those 2 massive losses, which really hurt my confidence. But then immediately you were willing to meet up with me, and we really deep dove into why I was losing. And then when I went on the 10 win streak, I definitely think this is not just luck, and I'm playing a lot better just from your coaching.
You did have a small loss on the 11th session after your 10 wins. It was for what,
$165.
$165.
Yeah.
But then you won again today. Small win, but it boosts your confidence back up. Yeah. So your losses, the first 2 losses you had, one for almost $1,500, and one for $1,000.
Yeah.
So absolutely soul-crushing losses at the 1-3, which I say don't even buy in. That's 3 buy-ins for the $1,500.
Yeah, 3 buy-ins.
And then a little more. You can only buy in at $400 at the Resorts World. So that's more than 3 buy-ins actually.
That one was at the win.
Oh, okay. So that was 3 max buy-ins.
3 max buy-ins.
But then the loss recently, you didn't chase it. You lost 160 and you called it a night. You played 5 hours. Almost 6?
6 hours, yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason to chase that money. It's been a long session. And then tonight, you also called it. You're only up, $60?
$65,
But you've been playing 4 hours. There's no reason to play into your tired hours where you're fatigued, making bad decisions. So in the time that you've played before this, since 2018, have you ever had any win streak even close to this?
Absolutely not, no.
You've had big wins.
I've had I was a very streaky player. I could run my stack up to 3K in 1-3 and have a 3K win, then lose $1,500 the very next day, and give back more than that over a week, right?
What's the longest streak you said you think you've had since you started playing poker in 2018? Consecutive wins? Maybe 4
or 5 max.
And this is just from my coaching. So
yeah.
You're sitting here at a nearly 90% win rate. Who started from a 27% win rate after years and years. What do you say to the people that don't believe that I win as much as I do?
Oh yeah, dude. just watching you play, like, have any like hand analysis done by Aero Poker, you'll quickly learn that poker is way deeper than you read on the forums. Like on the forums, you read, okay, the max someone can win is like 10 big blinds per hour at certain stakes. But I've seen him play, like shadowed him, and then he's also shadowed me. It goes way deeper than that, and I think like the way that Aero Poker plays, like no doubt with the win rate, and I'm not even just saying that because he's coaching me, but it's just like a whole different level of thinking. I've never seen someone so good at poker, and even though I'm a losing player, I've played a lot of poker, and I definitely wouldn't want to be at the same table as as Aero Poker.
Well, now the 1-3 players don't want to be on the same table as you with how you're playing now. Let's discuss some hands you played. You played it at South Point shortly after we started coaching. You told me about a hand. You had pocket tens. Why don't you tell us about that hand?
Yeah, so I just sat down at South Point. I played in the 2-3 game. So this was my first session outside of Resorts World in the win. Basically I sit down, I'm in under the gun +2, so middle position. So the guy next to me raises $25 under the gun +1. I flat with pocket tens, and then the guy to my very left calls, goes over to the button makes it 125 with his 3-bet, and then all three of us come along.
How deep are you?
And we're 600 effective. I'm 600 effective.
Is that the buy-in at South Point?
Yeah, at 2-3, the buy-in's $600. So it's deeper than a 1-3 game.
So the pot is 500 going in four-handed.
Yep. Flop comes 10, Jack, 8, 2 hearts. I have middle set, right? And so it was kind of weird because I don't know if I was just rattled by the new environment or I literally had just taken a shit. So I was like, like Chipotle and ice cream don't go well together, right? Like Dairy Queen and Chipotle. Like I just like cleaned out my bowels. So I was like kind of shaken up. So the whole time I wasn't thinking about any details except for like, check raising, right? I was like, so I just checked immediately because I always thought like early position, just check raise. Like in my mind, if you have a monster, you just check raise it, you never donk lead. So then it checks around, right? So with my middle set, flush draw out there. The turn comes the absolute worst card in the deck, the Queen of Hearts, right? So the flush draw gets there, the straight draw gets there, like literally ace king gets there. But then in my mind, because I miss value on the flop, I'm just thinking like, okay, I can't let this check around with my monster hand because I have a set of tens here. So like, nowhere in my mind was I thinking like, what did everyone else have? I'm just thinking about my own hand. Like, I need a bet because I have a strong hand. Not even realizing the flop texture is extremely wet. So then I opt to bet 250, hoping to get it in on the river. It doesn't get to that point because the original raiser just shoves his fucking stack into me like instantly. And then I'm priced in for another 225. So then I just call, and then he shows ace king. So he drew
so
the
when
turn.
you were telling me about this hand, before you even told me what happened or who has what, I already told you the guy has ace king.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not even worried about the 9. Never mind the fact that the 9 makes a 1-card straight. The flush gets there. I said the guy has ace king.
Yeah.
And this didn't occur to you because it's the most obvious hand for him to have because he 3-bet huge pre-flop and checks back the flop. That's only ace king. That's like no other hand. But other than that, when we discuss this hand, see, a lot of the information you get on the internet doesn't apply to a short stack game. Like people always say, don't donk out or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're sitting with another 400 or 500 blinds, sure, you have one pot size bet left after you called it to 125. The pot is 500. You have 475 remaining. That is just under the pot.
Yeah.
So my advice for this hand was just open shove. Like. The reason you open shove here is because, yes, you have middle set, but we're not talking about a flop that's 3, 6, 10. We're talking a flop that is connected. A 9 or a queen will have a free gut shot for you. Obviously, ace king has a free gut shot, has a gut shot as well. And there's 2 hearts. On top of that, you effectively only have 1 pot size bet. If any of your opponents has an overpair, like what the button was representing, when you shove, he's going to call you anyways, so you're not going to lose any value. However, checking gets exactly what happened to happen. Ace king gets a free draw, and now you are completely crushed. That flop was so wet. It is, it's not the kind of board you can check raise, or should check raise, with your stack amount. So I would just open shove there. Forget what people say about donking, not donking. You don't have enough left to trap, and the board is too wet to trap. It's not the type of board texture you want to trap there. So with
Okay.
only 475 remaining, I would have just open shoved.
Okay. Is check raising a strategy more used in deeper stack poker? Because
Most definitely. When
Okay,
you only
yeah.
have one pot-sized bet, just stick it in.
Yeah, just
the
stick it
only
in,
reason
yeah.
to ever check raise is to trap more money, to
Okay.
extract more value.
Right.
Even if I flop the absolute nut straight here, which would be what is it? 8 Jack 8 Jack 10, like 9 Queen suited, which I would never be in here. That makes no sense calling 125. But assuming I did, I'm still going to open shove. The board is too wet. Even with the nuts, I'm open shoving. Because there's too many cards that can come that put you in a bad spot. Like for instance, this freaking queen.
Right.
A 9 could come, and you're losing to a king queen, ace queen as well. There's almost no safe card here except like a random small black card. But you're looking at 3 other players, not heads up. This is only an open shove.
Okay.
In the meantime, last you showed me you're making about what, roughly $60 an hour since we started, or is it a little better?
Oh, since we started, I gotta rerun the number. Yeah, it's around like, I think it's around like 60 to 70. I think it was like $70 an hour.
Yeah, so that's over 20
60
big
to 70.
blinds.
Yeah. Like I feel like I get paid off on big hands a lot, and I'm not sure if that's because of my table image. People think I'm looser or something.
I don't think that's so much the case as you're literally just playing 1-3, bro. I mean, people literally just pay off bigger hands. 1-3, an ABC player can make a living just by playing better range selection. You don't even have to pull.
Yeah.
You can literally pull 0 bluffs at the 1-3, and the people don't know better. They're still gonna call you. But I mean, I don't advise that. I do advise 5 to 10% bluff ratio, so that the people that play with you more regular will think, they'll get that in the back of their head that you bluff all the time, even if your bluff percentage is really low. And it should be low in a 1-3 because these players, more often than not, they're calling stations. They don't understand advanced techniques. You don't need to apply any strange bluff techniques. Bluffing in a 1-3 is actually a losing strategy. I only use it as a form of advertisement. I bluff whether I win or lose. I'm going to show. I'm proud to show that I raised with 3-4 suited on the button and continued on an ace-high board. And whether I get lucky and go runner straight, I'm going to show.
Yeah.
Or if you call me and I end up, I'm just going to shut down and then I'm just going to show you I had 4 high. That's advertisement to get paid off later. Or even that time for the rest of the table to say, oh, this guy's a donkey. I've been told that from another good player that he had no idea I was a professional just because I don't look like one. Which is the impression you should always pass with, with whack plays like that once in a while. It's not like you do it all the time. If you do it, your hand should be played with a small percentage of something weird. Like nothing should ever be played 100% of the time, other than you have the nuts raised. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Pre-flop ranges there should always be some small percentage where you do something different. Like once in a while, you 3-bet this, whereas other times you call or big pocket pairs a small percentage of the time. I feel you can limp so that you can protect when other times you limp raise with garbage, which is something I actually do, but not everyone needs to use that tactic. But basically, your plays need to be balanced. However you play, have a small percentage that's the opposite. That will give people an aura of threat. So they can't think, okay, whenever this guy opens to 15, he's opening with some kind of suited connectors, opening something stupid. Because that's once in a while, you also open 15 with aces, kings, some sort of 3x, raise. I say 15 because that's in 2-5. If you're playing 1-3, like open to 9, once in a while, open to 9.
Well, I open to 15 every time normally.
Well, you should. I mean, I guess you can vary that if you always open to 15.
I always open to 15.
Then, but the thing is, you should open more, depending upon how many limpers you have.
I bump it up with more limpers.
Yes. Whatever you do, that's different. But you have to also balance it so that you don't get taken advantage of.
Right.
I open 3x a lot with all sorts of speculative hands. One gap suited, 7-9, 5-7 suited. I freaking open 3x raise. But then other times I'm doing the same exact raise and I have aces or kings or queens. So you have to balance it. Or a lot of times I limp raise because I'm just trying to take down. Someone else opens small. Like someone opens to 5x after there's like 4 limpers already. That's a weak. That's a pot builder. I see that. I recognize it. If I ever smell weakness, I capitalize on it. I will. I'll limp raise huge. Especially if you got 2 callers, that's like $75 trapped. I'm just gonna take that down round. What's the odds that you have a massive hand if you're only raising 5x after you've already got 4 limpers? That's just a pot builder. So you need unless you're a noob, of course, you should always change your plays based upon your opponent.
Right.
If they are a complete noob, don't put anything out of their range. They don't know how to play. Therefore, they're doing all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah.
But it's someone that bought in the max, bought in for 300 big blinds or whatever stakes you're playing. They buy into max. More often than not, they probably know what they're doing. The 1-3 I can't speak for as much because most people don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But basically, I'm just saying that if I ever capitalize on weakness, I will jump. Right. And a lot of the times I won't. I'll just have a mediocre hand.
Right.
But once in a while, because I do limp massive as well. Okay. Just whatever you do, whatever style you play. Like for me, I have a sliding scale of my raises. I do between 3 to 5x for any one of my hands. I could be raising 5x with 10 jack suited. Other times I'll raise 3x.
Yeah.
I'll do the same with aces. Sometimes 3x, sometimes 5x. It's my sliding scale. But whatever you do, just balances that. There's a few monsters in there as well.
Right.
If you continually always raise 5x, and that means you're more addicted to bigger pots, I guess, then just factor in that you need to add more for each limper as well. But then the downside of that is if you're in a 1-3 that's barely over 100 big blinds, you could potentially be making a pot really large, and you're sitting there uncomfortably if you raise light, like you're raising there with 10 jack suited and it flops jack high. You're uncomfortable here because you do have top pair. You can't just let it go.
Right.
But you're not very happy with your kicker, and you've got called like 4 ways or something. You're in a very uncomfortable spot because now the pot's ballooned pretty large. So that's my caution against raising opening too big when you're not that deep.
Okay.
When you have only 100 blinds, big blinds, or close
130.
Yes.
So maybe I can just open like lighter or smaller, like later position, maybe an earlier position to open bigger.
However you want to do it, just factor in mind that you don't want to be in an uncomfortable position based upon how deep your stack is with how big the pot is.
Right. Okay.
All right, so tell me about the 10-8 suited hand.
Okay, so 10-8 suited, this was actually last night, so my small loss, but up until this point I was actually running, like doing pretty well. I was up 300 in like an hour and a half, and then this hand happened. So middle position I had 8-10 of diamonds, I limp, and then there's a bunch of limpers. Then I think the guy's in like one of the blinds, he raises the 15, and there's 6 callers including myself. So I think 5 callers including myself, so 6 ways to the flop. And one context about this guy who raised is I played with him the other night, 2 nights ago, and he had done a really questionable play where he had like 6-7 offsuit on a 10-7 X board and shoved $500 into a $50 pot into another guy who had a set of 10s. So he basically open donated $500 on the previous night. So that was kind of like some context on this. Flop comes 10-7-6, 2 hearts, 1 diamond. Checks to me. I bet $60
into 90.
Into 90. Just because from our first lesson, I think the biggest mistake I was doing was betting too small. So I just wanted to try to get like 70% bot pot essentially, and then this guy who originally checked, he actually shoves for his stack, which was 338.
Because so he check shoved.
He check shoved.
Is it the original raiser?
Original raiser check shoved.
Okay.
So, I was just thinking this guy, like my image of him was that other hand. He just opened, like this guy's like wild as like fuck, right? So I like snap call that because I have top pair and a backdoor flush draw and a gut shot. And then the run out's like king of diamonds, blink like jack of like random suit. And then do you want to guess what he had? Or you already know what he had. I told you, but do you want to guess?
Yeah, you said he had a. Why would I guess?
Why would you? I already told you.
he had a middle set.
Yeah,
right?
he had pocket 7s there, and
what was his shove for? How much?
338.
Okay.
So for me to call that right, it's like 278 to win. 338 plus 60, 398 plus another like 90.
Okay, so my assessment of this hand, I think your flop bet was a little big.
Okay.
We talk about bets being big or small, and I said the 2 biggest mistakes that amateurs and regulars, non-professionals make is hand selection and bet sizing. And bet sizing comes up a lot. Hand selection, it's already, it's pretty easy. You shouldn't have played that garbage. That's your bad. But bet sizing, we talk about a lot because it comes up a lot, with your hands. If you have a massive overpair and you're the original raiser, you are comfortable betting, like you have kings on a jack high board or whatnot. You're very comfortable knowing that you most likely have the best hand here. On this type of board, you have top pair with a very weak kicker, but you do have a gut shot.
Yeah.
This is not the type of hand where you say, I'm very comfortable.
Okay.
This is more of, I need a feeler bet type situation.
Okay.
Okay, you can do a like a 40% to 50%. I would stick to like 40% pot to see how others behave. If you do 40 and someone raises you there, you're done.
It's like $30, $35 there.
Yeah, you're done. Yeah, I mean, this is not the same type of situation as if you have kings on a jack-high board. This is you have top pair, weak kicker. It's a different type, especially you're betting to 5 other players.
Right. Yeah.
So this is where, you know, it's the opposite of what you normally do. I feel you bet too big on this flop.
Right.
With a set pretty much close to 70% bet.
Yeah.
But anyone with ace 10, king 10, they're calling you, and now you've got 7 outs, and they're not even clean outs because it could be hearts.
Right.
You can also get multiple callers. Yeah, I don't think this is the type of board where you bet big.
Okay.
You need to find information. Like you'll see from my vlogs, like my very first vlog, I had pocket 9s, and it's like a 7 high flop. I have an overpair, but because it's like 5-6 handed, I bet small because I need to find out where I'm at.
Yeah.
This is not the type of same type of situation where if I were to 3-bet huge and then I know exactly where I'm at. You know, I'm like either I'm dominating, you know, people are on draws, or they flop the set and I need to find out right away. I need information. This kind of flop, you don't know where you're at. So I would lean towards betting smaller. Okay. The next thing I would say is, yeah, you have seen this guy do something crazy once before, but you always need to ask yourself is this spot here where I want to commit my entire stack?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say he has a random flush draw with 1 overcard. That's like 45% against you.
Yeah, it's still a coin flip, basically.
It's exactly. Is this the kind of board where I want to put it in?
Right.
Is what you need to ask yourself.
Right.
Regardless of how crazy you've seen him before.
Right.
And versus a check raise, that's much stronger than advertised, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, he can just easily have a gut shot, an overcard and a flush draw, and now he's, you know, potentially ahead of you mathematically. There's so many draws that it's just like, hey, you know, I might be ahead here, but it's not worth putting $400 for. Let's say you start it's a $90 pot. Let's say you start with a $40, $35, $40.
Yeah.
And he just jams it in on you. Now you're not committed to anything. You're committed to 15 pre plus your 45. You're $55. You know, even if you're ahead, do you really want to pretty much coin flip? You know, I personally avoid all coin flip type of situations with my skill level because why do I want to get it in with a flip? You know, ace king versus queens, or queens versus ace king, unless I'm forced into that situation where they push with ace king and I know, you know, I'm ahead with queens. I avoid flip situations because I know that my profit margin is higher than that. I'd rather get people, you know, who don't know how to fold. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they can't fold their queens when I obviously has king or aces, have been 5-bet and they can't let go. So it's a, you know, 82-18 type of situations. Those are the situations where I like getting people in. Or I make the flush draw and they can't let go of their overpair or their flush, you know, or their trips set or something. People that don't know how to fold, that's where you should get the majority of your profit. Where your profit is either massive or you're at the river and it's 100% and people don't know how to fold. So you don't want to get it in like flop type situations that are you know, at best you're up a few percents. You know, 5-10%. It's pretty slim shady we're talking about here. And in this case, you were a massive underdog.
Like 22%. Yeah, I plugged it in.
All you had was a gut shot, unless you had a backdoor flush as well.
Not a backdoor flush.
Okay, so that would
doesn't matter.
All right, so you have one more hand with ace queen. Let's discuss that.
One note about that is I think like this was one of my big leaks before I got your coaching, which is like I would like. In my mind, like this is the dream flop for my type of hand because it's like, oh, I have like a pair, I have like so many outs, but it's like, you're completely right in terms of when I was like on all my winning sessions for the most part, I don't get into any of these situations because they're just such a high variance. It's like I'm flipping for $400, right? And it's like, okay, I could get lucky and win a few flips, but then I can also get super unlucky and lose like multiple buy-ins just getting into these spots. And I think maybe because I played like an 11-hour session the session before and had my biggest win, I got a little too like loose or complacent or whatnot. But I just knew this was like a bad play, like kind of after talking to you about it.
Oh, was this the hand after you had your big win?
This was the session after my big win.
Oh, okay. I felt like I said, I think it comes from overconfidence. You won 10 times in a row, with your last one being absolutely massive, 1,300. So even I'm guilty of that. You start thinking, you know, any kind of draw you're going to make, you just think you're invincible.
I thought I was invincible.
But that's not how it works. You know, the
cards
statistics
don't care.
And it doesn't care what happened the last 10 times. The next time, it's still the mathematics still applies. The statistics still applies. you're still a massive underdog in this situation,
Yeah.
or at best you're close to flipping. It's not
right.
worth your whole stack. You should protect your stack.
Definitely.
As a professional. So let's move on to the ace queen.
Yeah, this is a similar situation, but I'd argue it's actually worse. So basically later in the night, I looked down at ace queen offsuit from under the gun, so I opened at $15, and then no one folds. Basically, I get 5 callers, so another 6-way, 6-way to the flop. Flop 7-8-8. Yeah, 7-8-8 rainbow flop. Checks around, so we all check through. Turn is a queen that puts a flush draw on the board. I think it was like a queen of spades or something. So, now I got top. So like 2 pair basically with the 8s on the board. So then I bet 60. And then a guy who had just recently sat down, so kind of unknown, he raises to 130 from late position. So I actually I knew the right move here was to fold, but I don't know if it was just from the overconfidence or something. I just could not find the fold buttons. And I knew he made it so small, so I flat. And we're like pretty deep, like 400 to 500 deep. And then the river's another 8. So in my head, I'm thinking this is exactly why I call and see the river, is because now I'm crushing his 7, or if he had any kind of middling, pocket 9s, pocket 10s type of hand, I'm ahead of that. So I actually bet into him for 120, thinking I was good and I wanted to value bet. And then he just shoves into my face for 250. And one context for the 120 bet was I was paying very close attention to his facial expression on the river, and he kind of looked really disappointed at the 8. So I thought I caught a tell. So then when he shoved for 250, I call him off. He has ace 8 offsuit for quads.
Okay, so for this hand, a few different things I'd like to point out. First off, live tells. I told you when we first started coaching that about 30% of your strategy is going to come from mathematics. 60, percent, actually 70% is psychology. But of that 70, it divides into a lot of different things. People's betting patterns, your own psychology, how much sleep and rest you get. But live reads, I said, is only about 10%, and you should only do it once you become a master of it. It is an advanced technique. People will give off fake reads, like what you fell into the trap.
Yeah.
If someone obviously looks disappointed, that is almost always a fake read. Yes. Why in the world would he be there's only one hand that's going to be disappointed by that river, and it's going to be pocket 7s. And pocket 7s is not going to call you anyways. There's no reason he's ever going to min jam on you. Once you get, you're committed at this point with whatever you have. Pocket 7's the only hand that's going to be disappointed by that river. Okay, now on to the other points. 9s or 10s are never going to raise you on that turn once a queen already comes. 9s or 10s are going to bet the flop. So you have a completely wrong assessment of the situation. It makes no sense for an overpair to the flop to check and then raise the turn after an overcard to their pair gets there. That doesn't make any psychological sense. So the most likely hand that raised you on the turn is the 8 or pocket 7s. Those are the only 2 hands. The only of the hands that you beat is a weaker queen. That's it. That's the only hand that you beat on the turn. When the river gets there, there's no reason to bet now because you lost your advantage. You were beating, queen jack, queen king, queen 10. Now you're losing. Now you're chopping with those hands. You're no longer beating anything. You're in a chop or lose situation. So on the river, the best thing to do is check call or check fold. I mean, there's no leading out and then snap call. You're beating nothing. I mean, the one hand you beat is pocket 7s, which wouldn't give you action anyways. Do you know what I mean? So I also feel before we even get to that point, I feel that your bet on the turn is a little bit too big. You're 6-handed. That is a massive, massive number of players. There are 10 cards held between those 5 players. Only one of them needs to be an 8 to absolutely crush you. So, it's one of those situations, like I said, it's not like an overpair on a jack disconnected board. This is those I need to feel out where I'm at type a board. There's too many players. So, you can do a feeler bet. Like I said, 30-40% is fine. And if in these instances you give a draw, a cheap draw, then so be it. Because it's better to protect your stack in this type of situation because you're not even invested much. At this point, you only invested your pre-flop $15 raise. So it's better to protect your stack and find out where you're at and give that cheap draw. if people, you know, if only 1 or 2 people call you, or whatever, you're hoping only one person here. If 2 people calls you, maybe someone's still trapping you. In that case, you know, so be it. But this is not the type of scenario where you give them a cheap draw 9 out of 10 times and they're gonna, you know, have equity over the long term.
Right.
This is just a rare scenario where you have too many players and you need to find out where you're at.
Right.
And you can do that with a smaller bet.
Right, right.
In which case you can get away. Like a lot of my bets in my vlog, sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small. But I always say, if I get raised here, I'm snap folding. They're with the intention that I will snap fold an overpair or top because the only type of hand that is generally going to raise you is either a mastermind who knows the art of deception and can rob you blind because he is a better player than you, or more often than not, the case is going to be someone who has a better hand than you.
Okay.
So if you lead with a smaller, you know, 35, 40%, and then you get raised, you know, 120 or like you did. He raised that because you already raised big.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to.
He doesn't need it. Like,
if
it was the same, like let's say I bet 25. Let's say I bet 30. He made it 130. An easy fold for me.
Exactly.
Right?
Because he will make it 130. He won't make it 60 at that point because the pot's too big. The pot's already 90. So that's how you find the snakes hiding in the grass. Like I often say, you find out because they hate facing a small bet. That's what gets them to strike. You know, he's not gonna have you bet 30. And then min raise you 30 more, and that's still smaller than a pot size bet. And there's 5 other players that can get that flush draw, that straight draw. Do you see what I'm saying? Whereas if you already made a big bet, he doesn't have to raise big. He makes it 130. That is a massive bet already. That will already take care of anyone else trying to get a cheap draw. There's no cheap draw to be had. Okay, so
yeah, those 2 hands basically. If you think about, if we add it up, right? Those 2 hands, the first one's like a $360 mistake. The second one's a $395 mistake. So like, I could have went from like negative 165 to like profiting a pretty juicy profit because of those 2 mistakes. I like ended up having a losing session.
Which you know, like I said, one of them is you know, I think both of them actually are bet sizing. Which comes up very often.
Also, me thinking like now that I'm thinking back at the times I think I have a tell, I'm like 0 for 5.
That's why I said don't look.
I need to just not look at the players. Like,
you need a lot of experience before you can learn to read tells.
And also another one that I feel like is like almost always they have the nuts is like, all right, well, time to go home.
No. You can watch Greg Goes On and he has a short just about that. Time to go home. That is always the nuts. That's always like pre-flop pocket aces. All right, time, you know, look at the watch. All right, got to go home. My wife is calling me. Yeah, right, that's aces.
And I think one thing I want to note out is like I feel like the times where I had the big losing sessions or just lose is when I make these like blunders like this. Whereas when I'm just playing the cards and let's say I just miss the flop or like kind of bleed out slowly, I'm actually usually able to recover from those sessions because oftentimes I do start down like $100 or $200 and end up like a few hundred. So these spots are a lot harder to recover from because they're just such big pots for me. And like for me to play profitable poker, like it's not like I'm getting into a bunch of coin flips and like I'm like running like a god, right? It's more like I'm grinding out like good hand after good hand and taking down like smaller pots. So avoiding these like coin flip situations where I'm on the worst end is like really big for me, I think.
I say choose your spot. I mean,
choose my spot.
Think about it like, is this situation, is this player, is this spot the type of spot where I want to get all my chips in with one pair? You know, with your ace queen hand, like I said,
like no redraw.
The river is 8-8-8, you know, queen. That like you're getting no value there.
I was like, there's no way this guy has quads.
And you want him to simply call you with 9s or 10s. It's like, you know, reassess your thinking. What's logical. You know, think like, wait a minute, I'm trying to get value out of 9s or 10s. Those hands would already have bet the flop. It doesn't make sense to raise after your card gets there. But so after all these sessions now, it's only been roughly 18 days. How much are you up in 1-3?
Oh yeah, after your coaching, I'm up $6,700.
$6,700. In 1-3.
And that's including the like $2,500 loss, right? So like, so I went up like in 6 sessions. I went up like $2,500. Lost it all in 2 sessions, and like since then I've been up like $6,700 basically.
All right, guys. This is Josh. This is our update, and we'll keep you guys posted.
Yes, sir.
So this was the second video released from my coaching series, and it will also be the last featured on my YouTube channel. I recognize that my normal vlog audience may not be as interested in this type of format, so the rest of this series will be available on my Patreon once I get that up and running. I've received quite a few requests for coaching asking what my fees are and if I even offer the service. Currently I do not, but if I continue to receive enough requests, it might be something I would consider taking up. I feel that you can learn enough from my free videos, or just subscribe to my modest Patreon subscription if you're truly interested in learning more in-depth techniques for low-stakes live poker. But if you feel you have to have that one-on-one connection, feel free to contact me through my email or Instagram and I'll think about it. If you learned anything from this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel to learn more tips and tricks on how to crush low-stakes live poker. Check out the rest of my vlogs for some humor, poker shenanigans, movie references, and an in-depth analysis of every notable hand that I play. As always, I hope to see you in the next video.